as you can see, luxury cars are battling with one another to enter the Indian market. Now, there was a time when all you needed was a little three-pointed star on the bonnet to get noticed, and if you were in a Mercedes E-Class, people actually turned to see who you were. But these days, the E-Class seems to be the millionaire's Maruti, and we see tons of them all over the roads. So, if you want to get noticed, you've got to have something different. Well, it's surely stunning to look at and bound to get eyeballs. It's hunkered down towards the ground and strong creases roll over the bonnet. The black soft-top hood stands out in contrast, and the flared rear flanks and low-profile tires all make it look ready for action. And of course, the biggest difference, the Cabriolet's party trick. It's a neat soft top that opens and closes without much fuss. The interiors are neatly laid out with the car divided into two clear halves by the central console. It's very typically Mercedes with everything of top quality, and it comes with the command system to cut out the clutter of too many buttons. The seats themselves are really comfortable, and once you adjust the bolsters via multiple adjuster buttons on the side of the seat, they envelop you really well. Now, the mechanism for the roof obviously takes up a lot of space in the boot, so let's see what we have left for luggage. I'm quite surprised actually. It may not have the height, but it's pretty deep, so I think you could even squeeze your golf kit in if you wanted to. The Cabrio has the 3.5-litre V6 with 268 bhp on offer, which sounds good on paper, but on the road, it feels quite different. With the top down and the wind rushing through my hair, I'd like to be able to put my foot flat down on this accelerator and zip past everything. But even when I put my foot flat down, this car takes just too long to react. The oomph isn't there. The gearbox is a bit lazy and the power comes in high, making the engine feel lackluster. Just thinking that it may be very sexy to own, but how practical really is it to have a cabriolet in our conditions? Heat, dust, rain, and people coming up to you at signals, you can't even keep them away. I'm 3 shades darker, probably 2 from pollution and muck, and 1 from the sun. I'm getting this top back on again, and I need some much needed air conditioning. It will never have felt so good. This ride feels really hard with the specifications that this one has. And as you can hear, this roof is making all sorts of sounds. In fact, feels like I've got a few crickets sitting here in the car with me and singing away. Well, the Indian conditions surely take a test on this car. It's not only the roof that reacts to our bumpy roads as well, it's the ride. It's firm, and with the extremely low profile tires, you can really feel the road. On the flip side, the handling gets really sharp and the steering feels very good and makes you feel confident around corners. And as you gain speed, the stiffness of the ride eases up, making it much better. Well, it's been a short stint in the Cabriolet, and I'm left with a feeling that maybe I should have tested this car out of town, taken it on a longer run somewhere else. Now, if you are in the market for the convertible, for that leisurely Sunday afternoon drive or that evening out with the nice open-air motoring experience, well then the e-Cabriolet definitely serves it all up. It's got a nice soft top that folds back quite easily and quickly. It's got great looks, bound to turn heads, but there are a few key areas in which this car lacks. Now, with the hunkered down car, the open air experience, you want some sporty punch, but this engine just lacks the oomph that you'd want out of a car like this. Also, on our Indian roads with these kind of specifications, the ride is really hard. And you don't get the bells and whistles that you would get on a comparative E-Class like, say, paddle shift. Just 16,000 kilometers on the clock, and you heard me say before that there were loads of squeaks and rattles that we heard inside this car. The roof really makes quite a racket on our kinds of road. Now at 20 lakhs more than the comparative E-Class, this one just gives you the feeling of being a bit shortchanged.
Now, if you had a crore of rupees to spend on a car, what kind of a car would you pick? Would you pick something young and sporty? Or would you much rather have something that's comfortable and luxurious? Of course, in either which case, you'd want something that's head-turning and breathtaking. However, if you want all of that put together in one package, you might want to take a look at this. BMW's new 6 Series Convertible. This is BMW's all-new 6 Series. It may be less aggressive than the car it replaces, but it still is dynamic. Just look at those V-ridges on the hood. However, the big triangular headlamps now look a bit soft. The large upright grille gives it a grand feel. Overall, it just feels more grown up. Well, it has certainly grown in size as well. It looks massive when viewed from the side, as it is 75mm longer and 34mm wider. To disguise its bulk, the designers have used many lines to break up the length of the sheet metal. The rear too gets a busy but handsome look. The 650i gets a variation of the L-type tail lamps seen on the 7 and 5 series. The interiors too are typically BMW in terms of design and quality. Everything has a solid air to it. The red stitching for the dash and the seats is a nice highlight. Splashes of red upholstery add more energy to the otherwise somber interiors. The seats sit low and can be adjusted in a number of ways. They are cooled, heated, and even come with a massage feature. Then there are the 2 additional seats in the rear, which mean the 650i could possibly replace your luxury sedan, right? Well, not quite. The back seat is quite obviously not the place that people will want to sit, especially in a convertible where it's a 2+2 kind of setup. But if you were made to sit here, you'd find that the seats are quite well sculpted, it's comfortable to be in, as long as you're not very tall. Getting in and out of the rear seats is also a bit of a hassle. Now imagine if you had to do that with the roof up. Another practical consideration is boot space, and at 300 liters, it isn't bad. You could easily get in your golf kit. But you'll forget about any shortcomings with this, the pièce de résistance. Press the right button and 19 seconds later, you'll be protected from the elements. However, the point of having a convertible is to stop hiding, isn't it? Until you've driven a convertible, you just don't understand what it feels like. What immediately puts a big smile on my face is the wind playing with my hair. It just feels so nice. The wind gently massages your head as you cruise down the highway. With the windows up and the aircon on, it was comfy even with the sun glaring down. For crawling in the city though, you'd be better off with the roof up. Now the 50i in the 650i stands for the massive 4.4-litre V8 twin-turbo petrol motor. It develops 407 bhp and a mountain-like 61 kilograms of torque. Its performance is even more exciting than what the numbers suggest. The star of this car undoubtedly is the engine. That V8 is explosive, it's mental in the mid-range. Combine that with the quick shifting ZF 8-speed gearbox, and what you get every time you put down your foot is this. The ability to shoot out of anything and anywhere. On top of that, it's also very, very refined. When you mash the throttle in, 0 to 100 takes a staggering 5.24 seconds. The torque works up to a storm to zoom you from 20 to 80 kilometers an hour in just 3.5 seconds. 40 to 100, it takes a blinding 3.9 seconds. This is blazingly quick. To ensure the best behavior in these conditions, the 650i uses double tie rod suspension at the front and a folding setup at the rear. With adaptive air suspension, you can set it up to suit your mood via the iDrive. Even after setting it to sports mode, the 650i didn't prove to be all that sporty.
Now when you point the 6 Series convertible around corners, what you'll find is that it doesn't feel light and sharp like a sports car. Because it isn't. What it is a Grand Tourer, and it weighs 2.1 tons.
All convertibles end up being heavier because of the added strengthening to make up for the lack of a roof. And even then, they aren't as stiff.
When you go over broken roads like this, you'll find the car does what is called as scuttle and shake. What scuttle and shake means is the car's body actually kind of flexes. It does this. And that's what's exactly happening on the 650i, especially on our roads, which are far from perfect.
The stiff front setup doesn't feel settled over broken roads, and the rear feels a tad too soft to be chucked around corners. The steering too isn't your typical BMW steering.
What I didn't like was the steering. It did nothing for me. It just doesn't feel very consistent. It's not very precise. And I guess that's the way forward with new BMWs.
Well, BMWs are getting softer and more focused on passenger comfort, and the 650i is no different.
You have the option of Sport, Sport Plus and Normal for setups, and when you want a nice and comfortable ride, it's normal mode that you want to be in, because that's where the ride is the most pliant. It really glides over everything. It feels very nice and comfortable. What happens though at higher speeds is it feels a bit too soft. It tends to bob around.
The normal mode is fine for low-speed drives in the city. In sports mode, there's better body control and is the preferred setup when covering long distances on smooth highways. Now, whether it's the highway or the city, slow or fast, the 650i is bound to do one thing and really well, and that is make an impression.
So the 650i is meant for somebody who wants to make a big statement, because this car really draws the stares, turns the heads, especially with the roof down. Along with that, you'll also end up with some very, very, very rapid performance, because that big V8 under the hood is absolutely explosive. It would make a sports car proud. In terms of handling though, this car isn't quite sports car like, because it is a big GT. It doesn't go light and sharp around corners. The benefit is on the inside you get a nice comfortable ride. It feels very luxurious. You've got 2 extra seats, so if you want to take the kids along, you can just put them in the back. If you want to take some friends along, just make sure they're not very tall. So this 650i really offers you punchy performance, practicality of 4, and along with that, a breathtaking statement.